homes in the Joe Slovo informal settlement in Cape Town have been razed to the ground. Hundreds of people have now been left homeless after helplessly watching their homes go up in flames on Saturday night. Newzroom Afrika's Ati Tongana is there and joins us live for more on the story. Ati, you have been interacting with various residents who've lost their homes, desperately looking for assistance and also trying to pick up the pieces.
I think going forward now is to not only assess the extent of damage, which we know at this stage is over 300 homes, which have left 1,200 people homeless. We also have to look at the fact that residents have now been pleading with authorities to come in and provide them with new building material where they can start to rebuild their homes. And talking about authorities, I have with me Angus McKenzie, who's a councillor here, who's going to talk to us about the efforts of the city of Cape Town in trying to assist the residents. We know you've been here since last night, but what is the city going to do then in trying to assist the residents?
So what we'll be doing very early this morning, or as we speak, is coordinating a joint operations centre between all the various line departments as well as the SASA, the South African Social Development Agency, that will then come in, start the assessments to understand exactly how many homes have been destroyed, how many people have been affected. That intervention will start activating NGOs to start coming on board to assisting with food relief, with shelter relief, as well as providing materials to start to get them back up and running again. Obviously, the city no longer does that due to government, national legislation, which now passes that responsibility on to SASA. But we will ensure that we're working alongside SASA to make sure that that people have what they need to start their lives again.
One of the things that I'm hearing a lot from the residents is material. They want material to be able to rebuild. How is the city going to assist them in that front?
No, look, absolutely. That's probably the most important thing to these people. And so we will ensure that we're working alongside with SASA as of last night already to make sure that SASA can assist. That is duly SASA's responsibility to provide shelter material to rebuilding material as well.
Now, I want to find out from you how difficult it was for the fire services to access this particular community, given the density and the overpopulation, and just how close to each other these homes were.
So where we're standing, I mean, in this very small space, if you want to put it that way, almost 300 shelters were destroyed, and that gives you an idea of the density that exists here. It was extremely difficult for fire and rescue services to get in. What was equally challenging last night was that a lot of some of the community members were hampering the efforts of fire services to get in and do what they need to do. So it is a challenge. It's a huge challenge, the density that exists within the situation. But I think what made it even harder was that certain community members sort of withheld the services from coming through. So we really did appeal, in the early hours, yesterday evening, we did appeal for people to allow services in. And I think the fire and rescue teams did an amazing job, because the potential for this to have been so much worse was really real, in fact. And if one looks at the devastation here and the fact that there are further informal settlements bordering what has happened here, I think the fire services did an amazing job last night.
Do we know what's going to happen to the residents this evening? Many of them, of course, lost their homes last night. They tell me that they did not sleep. Where are they going to sleep this evening?
So that we'll be looking at that at about in the next hour or two with the Joint Operations Centre, when we bring all the various line departments together as well as SASA, and we'll be able to do that. We have started engaging community leaders in the area as well as the ward councillors of the area, and that sort of discussions will be taking place within the next hour or two.
To find out where you can place them overnight, while you say SASA tries to provide them with assistance. Have you spoken to SASA? Have they given an indication of their involvement in trying to assist?
So we're meeting with SASA sort of officially in the next few hours. We were with SASA here last night till quite late. And so once that joint operations centre is set up and it's functioning, we'll be able to communicate further on what the plan is for the people here as well as the structures and spacing.
Angus McKenzie, thank you so much for your time. You can go off. That is one of the councillors in this community of Langa. I want my colleague then to show you what's happening behind me, because it's interesting that he mentions that the firefighters were able to put out the fire and contain it before spreading to the rest of the other informal structures which are very nearby to these 300 structures that burnt to the ground last night. And so luckily, others were telling me from the other side that they were lucky enough to not have their homes affected by this fire, because the firefighting services or the firefighting personnel was able to get here and put out the blaze before it could spread and affect some of the other structures around this informal settlement. So residents, as you can see, are picking up the pieces. They are trying to remove the burnt material so that when the joint operations is activated by the city of Cape Town, at least there has been work done on the ground in trying to pave the way towards rebuilding their homes and just trying basically to pick up the pieces. But what we hear then from the councillor, Angus McKenzie, is that the joint operations, once it's activated, will know exactly the extent of damage. Preliminary reports, of course, are that 300 shacks burnt to the ground, displacing 1,200 people. Those are preliminary reports, but they will come in again this morning to assess further what has been lost. And what they'll also be doing is putting together this joint operations so as to be able to help them find material, because as you've heard it from the councillor, the city of Cape Town is passing the buck to SASSA to say that they are mandated to find some of the residents here, well, those who have been affected by the fire, to find them building material so that they can be able to rebuild their homes. They'll also be needing, of course, the Department of Home Affairs, for example, because many of them have lost their ID documents. And so what Mackenzie is also mentioning is that they will, through this joint operations that will be set up by the cities, to also try to find alternative accommodation for these residents, because, of course, as you can imagine, many of them did not sleep last night as they watched their homes burning to the ground. And so tonight, they don't know where they'll be sleeping. And so we're hoping that through the engagement and through this joint operations by the city of Cape Town, they will be able to find alternative accommodation for them for this evening and for the next few days.